Chinese President Xi Jinping wraps up his visit to Russia. What are the potential obstacles to closer economic cooperation between China and Russia? And as the diplomatic crisis in the Gulf enters its fifth week, Qatar shows no signs of giving in. What are the wider implications for the international community? Welcome to The Point. Live from Beijing, I'm Li Xin. Welcome to the third edition of a three-day series on China-Russia ties. President Xi has wrapped up his visit to Russia with fruitful results. The two sides agreed to promote the synergy between the China-led Belt and Road Initiative and the Russia-led Eurasian Economic Union, or EEU, by signing a $10 billion investment fund. What are the priority areas of economic cooperation between China and Russia, who aim to increase trade turnover to $200 billion by 2020. What are the potential obstacles? And as Russia is still under sanctions from the West, what impact will these sanctions have on cooperation between China and Russia? First, here is my point. Now, compared with diplomatic and military relationships, an economic relationship is less decided by political will and more influenced by a host of factors, including commodity prices, international sanctions, investor and business confidence, and so on. That's why Sino-Russian economic ties have lagged behind political and military ties. And yet last year, bilateral trade rose 2.2%, a welcome figure against sluggishness in the global recovery. And the first 5 months of this year already saw trade volume increase by 1/3 over the same period last year. But if you look at the total figure of over $60 billion, Sino-Russian trade accounts for roughly 1/9 of China's trade with the US or with the EU. So economically, the importance of Russia does not match its political and military importance to China. China's integration in the global financial system means it has to respect and navigate carefully through Western sanctions despite being opposed to them politically. So long as these sanctions remain in place, Sino-Russian business ties will face headwinds. But with the strong political will on both sides, it could be hoped that business ties will continue to solidify. And for more on the topic, I'm joined in London by Lilith Gevorgian, senior economist at IHS Markit, and in Beijing by Liu Baocheng, director of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Welcome to both of you. Ms. Gevorgian, let me come to you first. Now, in response to the view that China and Russia have far stronger political relations than economic relations, Chinese President Xi Jinping has said economic cooperation and trade are the most wide-ranging areas in China-Russia, practical cooperation, and enjoy great potential. How do you evaluate the economic cooperation between the two countries?
I think it's underdeveloped. I think that indeed the potential is there, but the problem that I see in this economic relationship and the statements that are made about them is that repeatedly for nearly a decade now we hear about these sort of stretch targets, about the resolve to tap into the potential of the bilateral trade. However, what we are seeing in reality is slightly far from these ambitious goals.
What do you think, Ms. Gevorgian, are the possible reasons behind the reality we are seeing at this moment?
There are a number of reasons. To start with, the figure that you quoted, that there has been some increase in bilateral trade and it's quite encouraging. Just to put in a historical context, the levels are still below the 2011 trade volumes that we witnessed, which means that there hasn't really been significant progress. And the reason why it hasn't been is because both countries have seen economic troubles, particularly Russia. And large part of this trade relationship are energy exports from Russia, and obviously with the fall of world crude oil prices, the bilateral trade has also suffered. Another problem that I can identify here is that the difficult business environment in both countries, particularly for Chinese investors who are looking to diversify their business away from the energy sector in Russia, going into, for example, agriculture, non-oil sector, will be quite difficult because of the red tape and corruption issues. Although I'm sure that these problems are somewhat familiar to Chinese investors as well because of their domestic situation. And lastly, I think the structure of this trade relationship is another problem, where effectively Russia is exporting raw materials and in return importing value-added goods from China. Other sectors, for example financial sector, services, have not been yet looked into, and I think this is where the potential is.
Mr. Liu, let me come to your take on this issue, the level of economic cooperation between the two countries, and do you agree that it's been underdeveloped, and also the several factors that Ms. Gevorgyan raised?
Well, definitely I agree that it is really underdeveloped. There are more reasons to this underinvestment and underdevelopment. Number one is that we used to be part of the socialist bloc, where barter trade was the mainstay in economic relationship. By every end of the year, we try to check a balance. But when China was really shifting far more onto the market-driven economy, and the Russia was not really ready. And on the other part is that there has been a high level of inconsistency in the trade and investment policies. You know, there was a great cleaning custom house incident. A number of Chinese smaller businesses was kicked out of the Russian market. And also the level of corruption, it's really a big roadblock for the Chinese investment over there. Well, although there has been a high synergy, actually, both of those countries, because Russia is in bad need of made in China, particularly in the light industry area, be it bicycles and motorcycles, etc. But for fear of the unpredictable situation, there has been quite a level of skepticism among the Chinese investments over there. So as a result, on the political level, on the intergovernment level, there has been a lot of fanfare, but practically the procedures and the fear of further trouble really are stunning away of those investors.
But as you just mentioned, the political will is very strong on both ends. For instance, in 2015, the two countries failed to achieve their goal of reaching $100 billion of trade turnover. However, last year, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang promised that it would turn the corner for the better after the trough in 2015. Result has proved to be somewhat true. For instance, 2016, China-Russia economic cooperation started growing again, with a trade volume reaching nearly $70 billion. And it is expected that 2017 it will exceed $80 billion. So we are going to continue talking on that subject. But right now, I have just been told that we are going to cross live to some footage coming from the Berlin Zoo, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a visit. He is actually about to unveil a new panda pavilion. Let's listen in to his speech.
尊敬的米勒市长，
He's the mayor,
尊敬的
Miller,
克里尼姆园长，
and also the
女士们、
garden
先生们、
leader.
朋友
Ladies
们
and gentlemen, dear friends,
很高兴同默克尔总理一
I'm
道
very glad to join
来到历史
Chancellor
悠
General
久的
Merkel
柏林
to
动物
come
园
to this
共
historic
同出席大熊
Berlin
猫
Zoo
馆的开馆仪式。
for the opening ceremony of the
去年在
refurbished
杭州见面的
Panda
时
Garden.
候，
Last year, when we
默克尔
met
总理
in Hangzhou,
邀请我今年
Chancellor
访问德
Angela
国
invited me to
并出
visit
席20国集团领导人
Germany
峰会
this year and also attend the
并
G20
希望我
summit.
能够带来一对
And
大
she
熊
also
猫
expected me to
我
bring
做了
a
积
pair
极
of
回应。
giant panda. I gave a very active,
今
proactive
天
response. And today,
看到来自中国四川的
When I
大
saw
熊猫梦梦
Meng Meng and Jiao Qing from
在柏林
Chengdu,
动物园如期
Sichuan province,
和德国公众
and
面前亮相，
they
并
have
拥有
their
一个非
debut
常漂亮的
in front
新
of
居
old German
我感到特别的
friends.
高兴。
I'm very glad to see this.
从上个世纪80年代起，
From
柏林动物园
1980s
就一直有大熊猫生
Berlin
活，
Zoo actually started to
并同
receiving
中方长期进
pandas
行
and
大
had
熊
a
猫合作
very
研究。
long-term cooperation and research
曾经
projects
在这里
with
生活
Chinese
的
side.
3只大熊猫
We had 3 pandas
给德国民众
living
带
here
来了欢乐，
who brought joy
留下了
to German
美好
people
印象。
and also very great
希
impression
望
to the German
这一
friends.
对大
I
熊
hope
猫
this
不仅
pair
能够
of
尽
giant
快地
pandas
在第二故乡安家乐
can
户，
be
有朝
atomed
一日
to the new
还能
environment,
够
to the new
早
home,
生贵子，
and they can may
给
have
国
a
民
new
人带来
baby
幸运和
as
惊喜。
early as possible to bring more surprise to
今年恰
Germany.
逢中德建交
This
45
year
周年，
marks the 45th
建交
anniversary
45
of
年来
diplomatic ties between the two
中德
sides.
关系得
With
到
these
了
45 years,
长足的发展，
the relationship
各领域
between
的
China
交
and
流
Germany developed
合作
very fast and
日益
profound.
扩大。
We had more and more cooperation in various
在
fields.
建交45周年之际，
In the
重
bid
启
of
中德
the
大熊猫保
anniversary,
护研究合作，
we will
具有十分
conduct
重要的意义。
a more significant
我们常说，
cooperation in panda
国之交
protection. This is of
在
great
与民相
importance.
亲。
A better relationship
希望
relies
梦
on
们
the
交情
closer
能够拉
relationship
近
between both
中德两国的距离，
sides of peoples. We
成
hope
为
the
承载
pandas
两
can
国人民
become
友好
a
情谊的
bridge
新使者。
and a new envoys
最后，
to further develop the
我向
relationship
中德双
and
方
friendship between
为
two
大
sides.
熊猫合作付出的辛勤劳动
At last but not the least,
和
I
工
would
作
like
人
to
员
extend
表
the
示衷
whole
心的感谢。
gratitude
并
and
祝愿
appreciation
中德两国
to
人民
all the
友谊
people, experts involved
不断地
in the
结出
projects
新
from
的
both sides,
硕果。
and we hope to
谢谢大家。
receive more fruits of our friendship in the future. Thank you very much.
Vielen herzlichen Dank, Herr Staatspräsident. Und ich darf das Wort jetzt auch gleich weiter.
So you've been watching Chinese President Xi Jinping together with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel unveiling a new panda house for a pair of giant pandas just arrived in Germany. And it's very interesting. President Xi is visiting Germany after he visited Russia. And as I mentioned earlier, trade with the EU from China is almost 9 to 10 times the volume of trade between China and Russia. So, Ms. Lilian Gevorgyan, how do you look at the kind of balance China has to strike between maintaining a very strong and robust trade relationship with the European Union and strike greater deals with Russia, who is under Western sanctions?
Well, indeed, I think at the moment, because of the structure of the trade between Russia and China, China is really bringing hydrocarbon and imports from Russia, and mostly raw materials. These are sectors that are not necessarily affected by the sanctions. In fact, European Union is the largest consumer of Russian gas. However, when it comes to diversifying away from the energy sector, then again, there are uncertainties linked to the sanctions, and just like any other investor, Chinese investors have to take into account these regulatory problems. As we mentioned earlier, along with red tape and corruption, there is also regulatory risks coming from the Western sanctions, which I'm sure that the Chinese investors will have to take into account.
Mr. Liu, how do you look at the obstacle that these Western sanctions are posing to China's economic cooperation with Russia?
Well, in terms of the energy sector, there's really not much that they can sanction on. Actually, China is really defending its long-standing position that despite of the all the cries over what is called the humanitarian issue, etc., China really believes that people's livelihood is the most important human right. So by providing the critical supply, both in terms of cash and other, livable materials. So China is really doing its own way of humanitarian support. And on the other hand, actually, given the geographical adjacency, we do have so much in common that can really be free from the Western sanctions. The cross-border trade, and now we also have the border zone that are being set up, and now we also have the initiative to deal with the polar bear island. And particularly in the agricultural area, when China has huge experience dealing with the plants, and also we offer the biggest market now for those agricultural produce. And now another very important issue is really how to build a industrial chain. It's not only there to import the raw materials, but how we can really process and turn now into more of the final products.
Yeah.
And for example, the electricity plant we are building in the Far East is the right example. So there are plenty of areas, and plus that we are really seeing a far future. So I believe that any sanction is temporary, but the cooperation and people's livelihood are the most important determinants over what is lying ahead.
So the room is big for improvement, but a lot of work to be done. Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Lilith Kevorkian, Senior Economist at IHS Markit, and Liu Baocheng, Director of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. You have been watching The Point with me, Li Xin. We'll take a short break and we'll be back right after this. We're now in the 5th week of a Saudi Arabian-led blockade of Qatar as the diplomatic crisis in the Gulf grinds on with no obvious end in sight. Foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt have been meeting in Cairo, Egypt to discuss their next move after they had received Qatar's response to a list of 13 demands for restoring relations. Qatar's Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said that the list of demands was, quote, unrealistic and is not actionable. Now, the list was issued on June the 22nd as a means of ending the standoff, and the demands included ending support for the Muslim Brotherhood, closing Al Jazeera, downgrading diplomatic relations with Iran, and shutting down a Turkish military base in the Emirate. Now, the Gulf nations had given Qatar 10 days to comply, but extended the deadline on Sunday by 48 hours. Qatar, on the other hand, shows no sign of giving in, but has suggested to use dialogue to resolve the crisis. So how long will the crisis last, and how will it affect the regional situation? Joining me from Ankara, Turkey is Professor Hussein Barji, Chair of International Relations at the Middle East Technical University, and Dr. Luciano Zaccara in Madrid, Spain, who is Assistant Professor at the Gulf Studies Center at Qatar University. Welcome, gentlemen, to both of you. Professor Barji, Qatar has described the demands as unrealistic and is not actionable. Does that mean it's a definitely no? It's non-negotiable at all?
First of all, Qatar is under very strong pressure, of course, by the other countries you named. And Turkey has a military base there, and Qatar is at the moment trying to get Turkey as a balancing factor in this conflict. Actually, all these points, what the other countries have done, difficult, of course, for Qatar to realize them. So Qatar feels under very strong pressure, but Turkey is at the moment taking side on the Qatar, and it is a big debate here in Turkey whether Turkey should get involved in the inter-Arab conflicts or should better keep out of this conflict. But the fact is that Turkey is there and has taken side on the Qatar, providing food and also many other things, and politically and strategically standing with Qatar. I think from ethical point of view, Turkey is doing right, but politically and strategically, Turkey is doing wrong, because with this position, Turkey is now getting the entire bloc from Saudi Arabia to Egypt, to United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and they are very important economic partners of Turkey. And the more Turkey is resisting not to recognize the Muslim Brothers as a terrorist organization as it is demanded, then Turkey will have cool relations with those countries, and if this conflict is somehow resolved, then Turkey will be the country which will be criticized more strongly. I think the Turkish position in the Middle East is getting weaker, not strengthening. On the contrary, as it was the case 10 years ago.
Let's take a look at the issue per se. Again, Dr. Zakara, as one of the world's leading producer of liquefied natural gas, Qatar announced on Tuesday that the emirate intended to produce 100 million tons of natural gas a year by 2024. That's up about 30% from current levels. What is that for a response from Qatar? Are they getting ready for long-term isolation?
Yeah, I think it's that is the message that they wanted to give the other day, is that Qatar is ready to continue their normal life, to continue even to increase their production of natural liquefied gas. So having in mind that it's under a blockade of 4 countries and there is only one way to get out from the airspace from Qatar, what Qatar is saying to the rest of the countries is that we are ready to continue with this blockade long term. We don't have any needs, we don't have any problems in supplies, and our economy is not being affected by this blockade. So Qatar is ready. It seems that the crisis that happened, that took place in 2014, made Qatar government to be realistic about the possibilities of this to happen in the near future, and they got ready to be prepared, to be ready to overcome any inconvenience that this blockade could have organized in Qatar. So the message from Qatar to the rest of the country is that if you want to negotiate, we are ready to negotiate, but this list of demands are impossible to fulfill, and we can continue this blockade long term. We have no problem. We have allies. We have Turkey. We have other states, and mainly, or most importantly, the international community is not supporting this blockade.
Well, Professor Baji, now Saudi Arabia and its allies first gave Qatar 10 days to comply with an extension of 48 hours, but these demands are actually very draconian. What do you think they really want to achieve there? Is there a hidden agenda?
I think the biggest problem is, of course, international terrorism and the financement of these international groups. Turkey is at the moment taking side with Qatar because Turkey has very strong relations, including the military base. And the gentleman said that Qatar is counting on Turkey. It is true, because Qatar is now using Turkey as a tool, as a leverage towards the other countries. But what Turkey is doing is Turkey is getting more distance now by the Americans, by the Egyptians, Saudis, and all the other countries. In the long run, definitely Turkey will probably not leave Qatar unless the Qatari government is accepting the conditions. So this conflict will continue. I do not expect a big military clash there. No, it will be not the case. But it is a long-term managed conflict, I would say. And it is simply an inter-Arab conflict. It is not Turkish conflict. It is not Iranian conflict. It is inter-Arab conflict. And the Qatar, I would say, definitely has to step back in certain points. I don't know how they make the concessions, but pressure is increasing. Even the G20 meeting now in Hamburg, it will definitely occupy the minds of the politicians that they have to find a solution to Qatari question, because everybody is involved and everybody has a stake there.
Sure.
And
Dr. Zakara, let me get one more question for you there, because we're really running short of time. Dr. Zakara, the demands included closing Al Jazeera, claiming that it is a state-funded broadcaster. Now the Al Jazeera has responded. Why do you think that Al Jazeera has been chosen to be included on the list of demands, and how do you view Al Jazeera's position in both Qatar and across the Arab world?
Well, I think Al Jazeera has been always disturbing the tranquility of all the Arab regimes along the region since the very beginning. So this is a perfect occasion for Saudi Arabia to pressure and for Emirates to pressure Qatar to cancel Al Jazeera. But it's something that has been there for a long time, for 20 years, and it proved to be very useful for the people, for the population, for the Arab countries to express their voice when any other news channel in the region was able to do it. So honestly speaking, it's very difficult to accept for any country in the world to accept that Al Jazeera would be closed just because of Saudi Arabia, Bahraini and Emirati demands. It would be a very difficult for the world to accept that the freedom of expression should be cancelled because of one country is imposing this on another country.
As I mentioned,
what gives me this, the idea that this gives to me is that the main concern for the Saudi Arabia and Emirates is mainly regime survival, and the problem is Al Jazeera has always been the voice for those from the opposition in any country in the Arab world that can damage the stability or the legitimacy of any Arab regime. So this is the main target, to guarantee the regime survival of all the regimes in the region, and Al Jazeera has been always a danger and a threat for this stability.
Yeah, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Luciano Zaccara, Assistant Professor at the Gulf Studies Center at Qatar University, and Professor Hussein Baji, Chair of International Relations at the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. And as usual, here is my last point. Now, on Wednesday, a British foreign policy think tank released a report on Islamist extremism in the UK, and topping the list of offending countries is Saudi Arabia, which it says exports an illiberal, bigoted Wahhabi ideology. Over the past 30 years, Saudi Arabia has spent at least $86 billion on this endeavor. So is this a case of the pot calling the kettle black? The danger now is that this crisis is likely to spill over into the international arena, with outside countries being forced to take sides in the dispute. That is in no one's interest, and something that the international community should do its very best to avoid. Thank you very much for watching this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, follow The Point on Twitter or visit our Facebook page using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN Live to watch our show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.